Okay, let's kick off, guys. I was expecting more people, but nevertheless, we can make a nice family vibe, right? And we'll keep it roundtable and open-ended as much as possible. Thank you very much for coming and listening to myself and my colleague, Alec. We'll do our introductions next. I'll just quickly explain high-level what this presentation is about and dive into a bit more detail in a few slides' time after we've done the introductions, because I need to set the stage a little bit. This presentation is really about our journey in terms of moving our customers away from vCloud Director to vRealize automation, and only in a specific scenario, which I'll explain in a few slides. That being that, let's do our introductions very quickly. So if you don't know me, my name is El-Qasem. My title today is Global Cloud Architect in the CTO office of an organization called Canopy Cloud, which is part of the Atos group. I've been a blogger for 10 years, if you didn't know that already. I mean, usually when I do an introduction of myself, I usually go into brag mode and tell everyone how I've been a VMware instructor or worked for Veeam software in the past. But I thought there was time for a change and tell you something interesting about me and a few personal things. So I like music. I like everything from jazz. I mean, it says Diva Soul on there. I like techno as well from the other extreme. And if you were in my session last year, you would have known and found out that I'm a bit of a techno bedroom DJ as well. My favorite sweets are Parma Violets. Who else likes Parma Violets? You've never tried one? There's one or two people here. Seriously, you should try one because they're really nice.
No, they're not.
Yeah, that is a good idea. That's actually better than the freebies I've got this year. And if you like sheds or tree houses, you're kind of all right in my books, right? Yeah, I'm getting older, and those are the kind of things I'm interested in today. So, how did this get in there, Alec? I don't know.
I don't know.
Sorry, buddy. This was supposed to be like the slide introducing you. I didn't know. Yeah, well, while I'm here, I've been blogging for 10 years, and my blog was 10 years of age 2 weeks ago. So thank you for that, Alec. I'm sorry about that. You know what it must have been? I've got cats at home, and they kind of walk across the keyboard.
And they hit.
And it must have done a print screen.
Happened to do Control
yeah,
S,
sorry.
Control C.
It won't happen again, Alec.
Okay,
I'm sorry, mate.
Sure it won't.
So over to you, Alec.
Yeah, hi. You probably don't know me. I'm Alec Dunn. I'm the lead VMware engineer at Canopy Cloud, work with Ricky and co. And I've been using VMware since about 2006 or ESX 3.5 back in the day when it was still ESX, not ESXi. He said I had to talk about my interest as well. So I'm a big collector of old arcade hardware. Got my own arcade machine, all the boards that go in it. Annoys the wife like you wouldn't believe, but I'm keeping it. I like it. I'm a home lab enthusiast. I'm always trying to get more bang from a buck and trying to play with as many new features as possible with VMware and anything else that goes around it. I love doing that sort of thing. And I'm one of these old school people that still hasn't made the transition to digital music. He wanted something super geeky, so I still think these CDs are the best format. Can't get a better quality. And they're more versatile. So there you go. Okay. Back to you, Ricky.
Because I'm mean. Okay, so getting back to business, a bit more serious. I just want to set the stage a little bit before we talk about our journey in terms of moving away from vCD to vRA. I'll ask a few questions in a second, but again, just set the stage. Who was in my session last year? Hands up. Okay, one or two people. So last year, I presented our private cloud solution, and I talked about how we developed this true private cloud as a service and the challenges that we had internally in terms of getting people's mindset to thinking more cloud-like for private cloud, and some of the tooling and some of the features that we added in terms of automation, right? And I went through the whole thing end to end. And actually, that session was videoed, and I watched that video about 2 weeks ago on YouTube, and I realized something, that one of the last questions that came from the audience was, hey, Ricky, how are you going to displace vCloud Director from your private cloud solution? And a year ago, I didn't have an answer, right? And I'm coming back today, and now I've got an answer. Now, let me explain that question a little bit further. I'll ask the question again. Who uses vCloud Director? Who uses it for private cloud? Well, were you aware that VMware decided that they're going to pull? You are, good, right? Anyone not aware that VMware is removing vCloud Director as a perpetual license for use with private clouds? Oh. So I've been aware of that for 2 years, but the reality of that actually happening only was made real March this year at some point when vSphere 6 was GA'd. What that meant for our organization is that we had to start thinking about how we're going to remove vCloud Director from our private clouds that our customers buy, and how we're going to replace the functionality that our customers love today from vCloud Director. Now, I'll try my damned hardest not to make this a sales pitch, because I'm not trying to sell you anything. You'll see it's more of a concept ideas pitch. Some tips and tricks or some advice about if you're thinking or have to do the same kind of thing, what to think about, what to look out for, and what we've done internally ourselves. So, set the stage a little bit. My organization, a few years back, built this solution called Enterprise Private Cloud. It was really based on vCD, vCloud Director. We used vCloud Director for the segmentation aspect of the private cloud. In reality, the way we use vCloud Director is to provide our clients with a sandbox so they can do whatever they want inside that sandbox. And I'll talk about that in a little bit more detail in a second. We have been and always used VCAC, or vRealize Automation, as it's now known, as really the front end to our private cloud. So our consumers of the private cloud come to vRealize Automation, but it was more as a catalog than anything else, yeah? We had no intentions of using vRealize Automation as the primary cloud function within our private clouds. Any questions so far? So, just to go into that into a little bit more detail, and if I'm teaching you to suck eggs, just please go along with it for the moment. We are using vCloud Director to provide, departmental segmentation for our customers. Maybe aligned to departments or different groups of peoples or different locations. However, the customer wants to segment up the resources of the infrastructure. And our infrastructure is based on vBlock technology from VCE. We also, just out of the nature of how we design the private cloud, we also allow fully managed virtual machines to reside on the vSphere level as well. I'll kind of talk about why we've got this mix and match of different platforms as we go through the discussion itself. But that's how we were using vCloud Director. Really, it was about the segmentation of the resources. The Cloud Consumer Portal was VCAC. So, 2 years ago, VMware came to us and said, look, you're going to have to think about removing VCD. We're going to stop doing it on the perpetual license. That means no more VCD for private cloud customers. That, by the way, differs internally at VMware to who you talk to. So if you talk to the VSPP people, they'll tell you you can still use vCloud Director for private cloud, right? Yeah, that's you, isn't it, Ashley? Yeah. So yes, you can. No, you can't. So I'll let you people in VMware fight it over and come back to us when you're ready, right? But the situation is VMware asked us to remove vCloud Director from our private cloud. And 2 years ago, the thinking was that we would displace VCD and use vRA as a complete replacement of what vCloud Director was doing for us previously. Now, that's where the challenge started. So as of March this year, when VMware said we're pulling the plug, that's when we had to start mobilizing, and clever people like David over here had to start getting grey hairs. through worrying about what we were going to do about displacing VCD. And the idea is to use it as a single pane of glass. And VMware kind of alluded and led us down the path to thinking that everything that was in VCD was going to be ported into vRA, vRealize automation. And that wasn't the case. But we kind of got around it, right? Actually, I've already done this pitch once before at the London VMware user group. And I used that as an opportunity to have a big moan about this situation. But afterwards, I realized that actually we could be quite constructive about what we've learned from our journey, and that's what I'm going to do today. Any questions? Okay. Let's keep going. So, I'll explain something very quickly. I'm not an engineer within the organization. I work for the CTO office now. But previously, I create the high-level design for our private cloud. The engineers are the clever guys who sit in this audience now, and Alec's one of those guys as well. So I came to the table and said, okay, we need to remove vCloud Director. Clever people, make it so. So we started to discuss all the features and functionality that we'd missed by removing vCloud Director. And that's what we're going to do in this session. I'm going to talk about the feature that I think is important, still important to our clients, and Alec's going to discuss how engineering is going to fix my problem, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So the first of those features I think is important is the ability to build a virtual machine from scratch. Can you do that today with vRealize automation? Anyone? Let me ask another question. Who's actually touched vRealize Automation Center? All right, so the people who've touched it, I'll ask you the question. Can I build a virtual machine from scratch? What? Rick, go on. If you've got a template, right, yeah? So okay, the point behind this is I can't go to the vRealize Automation portal and build a virtual machine and convert it to a template throughout that, just in that one portal, right? And I had that ability with vCloud Director before, yeah? I can create a template from an existing virtual machine, that's fine, right, yeah? But I can, as a standard consumer, go to vRealize Automation and create a virtual machine from scratch and convert it to a template, right? Even worse still, even if I had the virtual machine already, I can't do that as a normal consumer. I have to be a tenant admin. So it's about roles and permissions. Now, before Alec answers this question, because I'm going to give him a hard time, right? Just to kind of help you understand a little bit further in terms of our solution, you know, at the beginning I said this is a private cloud as a service. Now, that's important, right? So our customers buy into this technology as a service, yeah? It's not something we say, hey, there you go, Mr. Customer, you operate it, we walk off site, it's all up to you. We take it to our customers and we operate it for them. And as part of that service, you know, we have to ensure resilience and stability of the system. So we don't let our customers, even though our customers own the private cloud, we don't let our customers touch the underlying infrastructure like vSphere, for example. So when I ask this question, can I build a virtual machine from scratch? The answer is no, because as a customer cannot come along to our private cloud, jump onto vSphere, create a virtual machine, and Bob's your uncle and off you go. Whereas previously, before, when we had vCloud Director, we had that kind of capability. So, Alec, how are you going to fix this problem for me?
It's all right, we can do that. Give me the next slide. It's reasonably okay to do this. We just have to use vRealize Orchestrator and the Advanced Services Designer feature of vRA. And that way, I can give you a blank blueprint with a load of configuration items that you can pre-select as a customer that we've defined in the background using property dictionaries and other such things. So I'll be able to give you your OS type. I'll be able to give you your ISO if we've got one ready to mount. And if you select all of those options and hit go, I can get you a machine through Orchestrator up nice and ready without them having to touch vSphere. There you go.
So what you're saying is basically you can present a blank blueprint, blank virtual machine, and as part of deployment, we've got the option to provide parameters to which ISO image will be connected to the virtual machine.
Yep, so you can have a VM provisioned without having to touch vSphere itself, and then you can boot it up, spin it up, and install your OS. Fine, there you go.
All right, I mean, any questions so far? Yes, sir. Oh, good point. Okay, so, yeah, I sometimes have to remember that I don't want to iterate everything I said last year. So our solution, and I'll just repeat the question, that you're asking, does the vCloud Advanced Suite, Standard Suite, come with the advanced designer capabilities, right? That doesn't matter to us because our solution is based on the Enterprise Suite. Answer your question?
But it is unfortunate because...
Is there a way of doing that without
I'm going to answer that on one of the very last slides. It's something I want to hold off, right?
But he has
There was
thought of
another.
that.
There was another question. Yes, sir.
What was if I want to use a custom ISO?
What?
Sorry?
What if I want to use a custom ISO because I've got a custom version of Windows or Linux?
Yeah. So, yeah, Alec.
Yeah.
How do you use a custom ISO?
Funnily enough,
Yeah.
we thought of that.
Yeah, because in vCloud Director you can upload an ISO, right? How do you do that in vRA, buddy?
Well,
How?
you don't. That's the thing. But
Right.
it's not a problem because we can build an ISO portal and present that to customers. So we've got a web page that will be able to upload an ISO of a customer specification to a database, and then we can populate vRA property dictionaries with a list of those ISOs. And bing bang, you then get a list of ISOs that you can upload. Well, no, you can upload anything you want, and it populates a list of ISOs that will then hook into that initial drop-down in vRA. So you can select whatever ISO you want. It doesn't have to be our one.
So to summarize, we had to build our own IP. In fact, the person who built it's just sat in front of you there, right? Yeah. So David was very kind enough in his own time to build us a nice little portal that allows us to upload ISO images, and that's how we fixed that problem. So maybe the answer isn't just native, right? You might have to do some development to get around, but we felt it was that important to our clients to mirror as much as what they had previously, that we were going to go and do it ourselves if necessary, right? See, I was kind enough to give them the license anyway, Alec.
I know, even though I answered it.
So, Alec, on that kind of line of thinking, in vCloud Director today, I can go along and create my own catalog, right? My own personal catalog. Can a standard consumer, cloud consumer of vRA go and do that? I don't think so, unless they've got the elevated privileges. But I don't want to give my customer elevated privileges. So how are you going to create and build or allow customers to build their own catalog?
Well, click me on to the next one and I'll tell you. We can basically create it's a bit of a hack, but you can basically create a blueprint to request a custom catalog item. Again, this is another thing that hooks in with custom workflows that we have in VRO that, given user input, will then go and create custom catalogs for the user.
I just want
it's
to
kind of more of a concept at this point, isn't it, really, Ricky?
I want to just ask a question first, Alec. Right? Has anyone in the audience done anything kind of aggressively with the vRealize automation APIs? Yes? Have you done this, Michael? Yeah. And how do you do it? What's your method? So do you use VRO to do a lot of the orchestration? All right, so I'm kind of going down a path of moaning again, right? But in my opinion, the vRealize automation product is very powerful, but its APIs are and yeah, I'm sorry, it is. It really is. It's very awkward, very difficult. And actually, the API comes in two parts, and half of it isn't documented. So you have to be creative and crack out into VRO to do a lot of the work. And that's the kind of, challenges and experience that we're having today as well. I think VMware, revision by revision, are actually getting better, maturing the API, but it's still a problem, even in the next version as well. Dean? James, sorry.
Can you do security on the catalogs or in a sort of multi-tenancy way so that ISOs and things that I would upload are separate from others?
Should we get Dave to answer that one?
I was going to say, Dave's the
Yeah,
one that
Dave.
did that, so
Dave!
the answer is yes, but
All right. Is it when we talk about multi-tenancy, should I wait there? Yeah, okay.
yeah.
Come back to you, James, sorry. Actually, we should give him a ticket for that because that was a bit of a bum answer, that, wasn't it? I'll come back to you. Michael, here. You know me. There you go. Yeah, multi-tenancy is a good one, James. We'll talk about that in a second. Actually, we'll talk about it now. So, look, one of the other things that we can do in vCloud Director is segment up, and I mentioned this before, we can segment up the infrastructure, the resources, and have those aligned to departments, groups of people, locations, however you want to segment up and resources. And the construct in vCloud Director is known as an organization. And we want that same capability, Alec, right, yeah, through vRA.
Yep.
Right, so what can you do for me?
Okay, well, we can do a reasonable amount on this one. We can do multi-tenancy and sort of create a separate entity for an individual user. Slide, I think, the next one. Thank you. That organization that you talk about is made up of many, many components, some of which are shown on the board here. Things like creating a tenant, adding the user to the portal. All of that, the idea is so we can automate it for you and create an organizational-like structure within vRA. Now, I know on there it says, like, add tenant brackets ticket. It's not. We've basically automated it all for you through vRO. So you can use a JSON file to enter your tenant information and click a button, and then we'll go off and create that all for you. And we're working on the rest of it, but we have things done for you already.
So you tell me that, a standard user can come along and request the creation of a new tenant,
Yeah,
which we
absolutely.
called an organization before.
Absolutely.
Right, yeah.
Little
And that could
improvement.
be automated. I know previously it was a manual ticket, but you tell me it's now automated.
Yep, done it.
All right, cool. So do you want to talk through, this picture's straight out of a VMware document, but it could help you map the different constructs between vCloud Director and vRA. It's the same, really. It's just different terminology.
Yeah, it's VMware's definition of multi-tenancy within vRA as a whole. You have your resource split up, and the way you define the resources per tenant is through having fabric groups which have access to particular resources. So you can separate out resources per tenant via fabric group, and then breaking those down into reservations, say, of some storage, some compute, some memory reservation for within that fabric group that could be a departmental resource, for example. And then you control access to those individual reservations by use of business groups. Now, that's vRA's way of defining permissions and hierarchy within an organization so that you can have admin users that go on that can do everything and see everything, and you can have users that go on and see very little. Crucially, it's the business group that really defines the tenant permissions as to what they can do, because the rest of it can sit on shared infrastructure. But by using fabric groups in a quick way, we can separate that out for you. So that's how we're going to do it. Well, that's how we've done it.
Sorry to rush you, Alec.
That's
We've got
all right.
like about 10 minutes or so.
I know, you
but,
talk too much.
There's still a lot of stuff going on. Okay, so next thing is, I want to spin up a virtual data center. That's another construct, and we saw that really on the last slide. You could define it as a fabric, right? Yeah. So how are you going to do that for us?
Well, it is like that. It's essentially we're going to have to create a blueprint or an advanced service catalog item to request a resource within vSphere and go from there. Now, this one is more of a concept because we haven't quite made it yet. I'm sorry, I haven't delivered everything you asked for.
Right, that's
but
fine.
We do have that. We can order a self-managed data center, and that will set up business groups and put permissions in, set everything up so that people will be distinct.
So no pressure, but when can I have it?
Monday.
Okay. All right, so this really is just to help you. And if you've not looked at this, every time I look at vRealize automation, and we've got these different constructs within vRealize automation, like reservations and resource pools and fabric groups and business groups and all those things, my mind just gets blown in terms of the dependencies between all those things. But eventually, after I look at it for about 5 minutes, everything comes into place and it all kind of makes sense. And every time I forget about how the dependencies work, I then have to go and review it again, and I forget, and I think, why the hell have VMware done all of this? And then it all kind of makes sense again, right? Yeah. So, you know, we've got blueprints that are associated to resource pools associated to reservations, blah, 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 right? But in terms of what you're suggesting, you're saying what we'll do is we'll create a resource pool at the vSphere level, we'll automate that, and that's the link, that's the segmentation.
Crucially, it's the reservation policy.
All right, what about spinning up dynamic networks? Because I could do that before with VCNS.
One word, NSX.
NSX. It's as simple as that, isn't it?
It's as simple as that.
NSX, out-of-the-box integration with vRA.
Yep.
Right, yeah? We don't have to do anything tricky. It's all there for us.
It's all there.
Right? We can actually basically mirror everything that we had before with VCNS using NSX.
Yep, and we get some nice new features as well.
All right, okay, so this one's a good one because this, you know, a customer came to me and said, yeah, you know what, I want active-active stretched clusters. How are you going to do that then, Alec?
This is where I wish I didn't work for him, because you couldn't do that beforehand, and you knew that.
All right, yeah, so that's a bit of a trick question. So now, look, I had a moan before and said, hey, yeah, vRealize is a bit of a pain in the backside, but actually it's very powerful at the same time, right? And this is, I'm going to start to talk about a few things that vCloud Director you'd never be able to do before, right? And here's a real-life scenario of a feature or, you know, a requirement from a customer that we made happen using vRealize automation. So a customer said to us, you know, we want the ability to have stretched clusters, active-active stretched clusters between data centers. I want a virtual machine to be deployed on a stretched cluster. When I deploy that virtual machine, I want to dictate which data center that virtual machine goes to, right? In the event of a disaster, I want the technology underneath to HA that virtual machine to the other data center. I also want to be able to do things like have affinity with other virtual machines. Can you do any of that with vCloud Director? No? No, you can't do any of that. Do you know why? Because you can't customize vCloud Director. It's as simple as that. So you want any additional customization or features like that, you can't do it. But you can with vRA, right? Yeah. So it's not all bad news. So I just wanted to go into this idea just so you understand the power of vRA and that some of the things you can do with it into a little bit more detail. This is how we got around that particular idea. Here's a stretched cluster, stretched across 2 data centers. We're using some form of synchronized storage. In our case, it's vPlex from EMC, but it could be anything, right? I'm agnostic. And the idea is, well, customer wants to come along, come to a cloud portal, specify that they want to provision a virtual machine. That virtual machine goes onto a specific data center. It could be 1 or 2 in this case. It's their choice at the end of the day. And that virtual machine should stay in that data center until there's a failure, right? Yeah. If you did that with vCloud Director, you can have stretched clusters with vCloud Director. Well, what's the risk? Well, the risk is that virtual machine could float between data centers if DRS kicks in. So you could get this kind of thing. And this is exactly what happened to us. And how we fixed that problem, I'm rushing a bit, guys, because we've only got a few minutes. How we fixed that problem was through automation, right? We came up with this idea of creating DRS groups at each site. That's how we'd create the affinity of the virtual machine to the data center. What we can do with DRS groups, and DRS groups, by the way, is a native feature of vSphere, is we can do things like, it's got its own automation built in. We can stipulate what happens to the virtual machine if there's a failure, right, or some kind of failure. If one blade goes down, should the virtual machine move? Well, the answer is no in this scenario because the data center is still running, so there's going to be other blades that could take that virtual machine. What happens if all blades go, or the whole data center goes down? Do I want the virtual machine to be HA to the other data center? Well, the answer is yeah. Now, with vRA, yeah, because you can customize vRA and you can add on these advanced service workflows using vRealize orchestrator, you can manage all of that by creating the automation workflows and presenting prompts for when the virtual machine is deployed. In our case, the customer wants to stipulate which data center it goes to. What happens then is a workflow behind the scene does the automation. Any questions? I'm rattling through it pretty quick. No? Yes, sir. Can you say it louder?
Sorry. Have you found customers are finding this way of doing something really difficult with VCD?
I wouldn't have thought so. It's a good question. I'll ask them. Next time I see all of my customers. I tell you why there isn't any resistance, right, from our customers. And it goes back to last year's session. Because we use both at the same time. So we're using vCloud, back then VCAC, as the portal where things got done, like the catalog, right? So they were always going to that anyway. But when they wanted to break out into a sandbox, that's when they moved to vCloud Director. So they had both anyway. Does that make sense? Yeah. So now they'll just not have vCloud Director, but the same capability within the interface, because we can customize vRA. Any other questions? Now, this is probably the biggest bone of contention for us right now, right, David?
It's a big pain.
It's a big pain, yeah. What about customers that are already using vCloud Director, right? How do you migrate those virtual machines that exist on vCloud Director today to a platform that doesn't have vCloud Director and is mainly based on vRA? And for us, well, I mean, here's some ideas, right? You can do things like V2Vs. Yeah? It's not as straightforward as click here and click there and move over here and do this and do that. There are technologies from VMware, tools from VMware like vCloud Connector, but you have to be mindful that there may be downtime involved if you're moving virtual machines from one platform to another platform. We just found the whole thing very tricky, in terms of our approach. I think, however, whatever method you use is going to be manual. There's no quick fix to migrating virtual machines from vCloud Director into an environment that doesn't have vCloud Director. The big issue is a virtual machine or a vApp within vCloud Director is packaged up with a lot of metadata that has to be stripped away. The other thing that you need to be aware of, and I'll talk about this in a bit more detail, is if you want virtual machines that existed on vCloud Director previously to be visible not on the vCloud Director portal, but in the vRA portal, what you have to do is associate that virtual machine to a blueprint, a template, one of the catalog items within vRA. And again, there's no quick, easy fix. What I do know is, and maybe I shouldn't be telling you this, but I'm not giving away too much information, is VMware PSO have been developing a tool to actually help you do the migration of the virtual machines out of vCloud Director. And when I say migration, I'm not talking about the shifting of the virtual machines data. I'm talking about the deregistration of virtual machines, stripping out the metadata, and re-registering those virtual machines under vRA. Okay? And that's what this slide's about. One other thing, I'll just go back one. I haven't tried this yet, or I don't think any of our engineers have tried this yet. I don't think we're at that stage. But according to the NSX documentation, there's a straight upgrade path from vCNS 5.5 to NSX. So I'm hoping what that's going to do for us is keep the same configuration we had previously within vCNS. So keeping hold of those edge devices and all the parameters with those edge devices. Now, little tip. Any questions? Because I've got a few more licenses here. Do you, yes, sir? Yeah? How many?
How many ISO files can upload that contain a 5 megabyte picture of my cat?
David? He's asked you a complete obscure question just so you can't answer it, so you could have one of these. There you go.
The answer is, though, if it's an ISO,
Yeah.
you can upload as many as
Yeah,
you
you
want
can,
based
yeah.
on our parameters that we've given you for storage. There is a file store limit, though. But if you want to upload pictures if you can, that's fine, no problem.
All right, so this is a nice little gotcha. And who's thinking about vRealize automation? Okay. Look, we were early adopters of this technology, and I think we made a mistake. And a different department within the organization did something different than us because they started a bit later. And I think their approach was better, but let me explain. Any questions? I thought I had something. Within vRealize automation, there are kind of really two different entry points to the automation itself. There is what we call straight-up infrastructure as a service blueprints that are built natively into vRealize automation. And though, you can't do much more than deploy an operating system and maybe some, basic configuration of the operating system. Anything more complicated than that, like day 2 configurations and so on, well, you back that up by running a vRA, advanced services workflow, which can be associated to a vRA blueprint template. And what we found with that approach is, just because of lack of functionality within vRA, it's very difficult to copy blueprints. In fact, you couldn't copy blueprints. If you wanted to copy a blueprint between tenants or different customers, you had to basically recreate that blueprint again from scratch. And I'm talking about the infrastructure as a service blueprints, not the vRA workflows. One of our, like this other organization department, caught onto an idea, which was, actually, let's not make the main entry points to deploying virtual machines the vRA workflows themselves, the vRA infrastructure blueprints, but use vRA as the main entry point catalog item to deploy virtual machines. And the thinking behind that is, well, with vRA, you can copy workflows, and you can copy them between tenants or customers. So what those guys did was, and in hindsight, I wish we'd done the same, is they hide a infrastructure as a service blueprint. They create one for each operating system, but they hide it so the customers don't see it. So there's only ever one infrastructure as a service workflow blueprint for each operating system. And they control the variety of blueprints and catalog items with vRA Advanced Services Designer workflows. And those advanced services can actually call these hidden blueprints to actually deploy the operating systems. Now, that might be a bit too much to take in, right? Yeah. But if you want to talk to me offline about that, how that actually works, come and see me. Yes, Michael?
I was just going to say, I was going to take a slight issue with that second bullet. You can duplicate blueprints.
Yeah.
Blueprints.
How's?
It's not easy.
Okay, so you could probably break out into the API and pull it that way, or cloud client, right? Yeah. But when I say that, I'm talking about native functionality within the interface. But it doesn't matter, does it? You know why? What does the last bullet point say? The problem's gone away, right? Am I allowed to talk about vRA 7 yet? Yeah? Can I talk about it? Yeah, I think it's probably be. I mean, it's going to get released next month anyway, so I think we're there. So anyway, then in the new version, vRA 7, VMware have actually fixed that problem because you can actually export blueprints. And in fact, the whole concept of blueprints is an advanced service designers and workflows. It's kind of one thing now. So you can do things like create chains of blueprints, and it's all in the interface. And you can export those blueprints into a standard format called YAML. VMware don't support yet the industry standard that everyone else supports, which is called Tosca, but that's coming, I believe. Yes, sir?
Do you not find that the more this customization you add, the more problematic your upgrades become?
Sorry, can you say the last bit?
Do you not find that the more customization like this you add, the more problematic your upgrades become?
I don't have that problem. Dave might over here.
But the answer is yes.
Dave, do you want to get up here?
The more we do of this, the more problematic upgrades become. But we have to be very careful and design it right so that we know what we think we're going to do in the future is compatible with what we do now. And no, we haven't always got that right.
All right, yeah, so if that was a bit too much to take in, I can explain it into a bit more detail if you want to talk to me afterwards. But that kind of concludes our presentation. If there's any other questions, but I'll just finish up by saying, look, we'd love to keep VCD because it would have made our life easier, to be honest. We wouldn't have had to engineer all this stuff, create all these different blueprints, create portals for uploading ISO images. That might be fruitless as well because we might find out in later versions of vRA that VMware have done that themselves as well, right? Yeah. But it's definitely not a showstopper. And if you think about it, it's kind of a love-hate because at the end of the day, vCloud Director, as good as it was not customizable. And we need a customizable solution. And that's what vRA brings us. Okay? Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Do you think you could expose certain hardware cards to clients as well? To use, like, for instance, the NVIDIA grid cards, someone who wants better graphics processing into VMware?
Well, I mean, are we talking about EUC here? Because, VMware is starting to kind of push the whole automation self-service thing down the EUC path as well. So you can use vRA for that scenario. And if that particular scenario is can be automated because the APIs exist within Horizon, for example, then you can do anything. Yeah. If whatever you're trying to orchestrate has an API, the options are endless. Any other questions? Yes, James. Sorry, I won't say Dean again.
Most of what you talked about is all to do with private cloud, but is vRA capable of doing any public cloud?
Yeah. So.
Or is it still vCloud directly?
I have to be careful what I say. Yeah, we've struggled big time with vRA now, public cloud. Yeah, because at the end of the day, it has this construct of tenant. Yeah, but yeah, it's been tricky, mate. Very, very tricky. I'll do next year's session on that one. Right? Yeah, I could make a whole hour out of it.
Full multi-tenancy through VRA.
Yeah. There's bits missing for multi-tenancy. Let's put it that way. Yeah.
So for public, stick with vCloud Director?
Well, we've got both. We've actually got two public clouds, and one's based on VCD and one's based on VRA. Yeah. But it swings and roundabouts as well. So, any other questions? Yes?
Does your price to the customer increase with VRA over VCD?
This was in the suite. So we were buying it as a suite anyway. We had both products. So no difference in cost. Any other questions? All right. We are looking at OpenStack, but you know what? The OpenStack discussion is driven by customers, not by preference. Yeah, for sure. Never say never, but I don't think in the near future that we'll be going all in OpenStack. I saw another hand. No? Any other questions? See if there's any more slides. Oh, shit, how did this get in there again? Oh, I'm
Your
really
cat.
sorry, Alec.
That's all right. It's your
Did
cat's
I mention that my blog was 10 years of age? No. Well, that being said, look, guys, is there any other questions? Thank you so much for your time. If you need to get hold of me or Alec, you can find us on the internet somewhere. That's my blog, that's Alex's blog, that's our Twitter handles. Any last questions, guys? I think that was perfect timing. I'm on 59 minutes.
Were there any freebies?
There was lots of freebies, and I've still got some left, actually. Okay, first hands up. Oh, I saw 3, and I've got exactly 3. Thank you so much, everyone.